governor, asking them to take action to prevent the construction of the pipeline within the borders of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Right now, Kinder Morgan has a pipeline that runs through Massachusetts. They have 600 miles of pipeline that runs through, and over 50% of that gas is fracked gas. They want to expand. Questions came up at a meeting held at Greenfield Community College. Why not just follow your existing right-of-way that you have with your easements so that you're not tearing apart, communities and villages with your pipeline through the northern tier to get to Drake. There is another way that they could go to get to Drake. Right now, that pipeline is at capacity, so they do need to do something to increase the capacity. They have to make another pipeline. At this point, after reviewing and going to meetings and reading articles, I just feel in Templeton we should probably take a stand on this. It's not going to go away. The need for natural gas is not going to go away. We are going to continue to have energy problems, but I don't believe that this is a reasonable solution. I don't believe putting a tariff on all the residents of Massachusetts to pay for it when Kinder Morgan unit holders receive 24% annual return on their investments is fair or equitable. I know that if you have a pipeline going through your property, they fly through with helicopters over the pipeline twice a week to make sure that that right-of-way is not being disturbed. And it's a quality of life issue, and I believe that there is, I think it needs to be looked at differently. So I brought it forward.
And am I correct in my understanding of this, that the reason it's going to Drake it is for processing and export, not for domestic consumption? Is that correct? This isn't natural gas. This pipeline isn't there to make natural gas cheaper and more convenient for Massachusetts residents. It's for sale on the market to whoever buys it. Right.
Kinder Morgan just builds the pipeline. They will only build the pipeline when they have contracts that they can take to FERC and say there's a need for this pipeline. Right now, at the meeting I went to in Greenfield, they didn't have any contracts. That was kind of like, okay, so it's a chicken and the egg.
Right.
So you're going to build it and they will come, or I didn't understand that whole logic. They were supposed to do questions and answers. They ran out of time, so they were going to write the answers to the questions that people had in the audience. I haven't gotten a hold of that material yet. But it just, I know I wouldn't want it through my backyard. I have 1/3 of an acre. I'm not too worried about it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We'd take the whole house.
And one of my concerns too is that obviously if it were going through Templeton, there would be compensation issues, and Templeton may have some economic benefit from it. I mean, besides quality of life. If it's not, it's going one community above ours,
Right.
And as we know, so if there's any fracture or a break in the pipeline and there's groundwater contamination, that would obviously, we're close enough for it to impact us. And as you know, Templeton does not get its water from a reservoir that then is filtered and distributed. We have giant pumps that pump our town water out of the ground. So if there are groundwater contamination issues, that doesn't just affect people who have wells, that impacts everyone who has town water also. So we're all impacted by the quality of the groundwater here in Templeton, not just people who have wells. But so I personally support passing of this statement or resolution. I don't know if anyone.
And Julie, Winchendon is allowing this? I guess I'm
No,
behind the
Winchendon
time. They
is,
don't.
they're trying to,
Not with
what
them?
Kinder Morgan did was private landowners, they went to a lot of them and asked for permission to survey. Right now, they're at the survey phase. I believe the town manager in Winchendon has denied them access to survey town property in Winchendon, and they're working to try to find out a little bit more before they allow that to happen. They can go to FERC and make a case if, Winchendon's the only one that holds out along the whole line, then FERC can override that, even on a town level.
And if Winchton allows it, won't it still affect us because it's right on our border?
I
Right.
would think so, yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
they, well, we can't stop it, right?
Right,
for
but
them,
we can, you
to
know,
vote.
I mean, this is just issuing a statement,
Mhm.
you know.
When also, if Winchton puts up enough of a fight that they think that rather than move to condemnation proceedings in Winchton, it would be easier to go through Templeton.
Right.
They kind of know our opinion on the matter, you know, as it is. But
Yeah.
again, this isn't legally binding, it's not, but it's just
No.
a statement to be issued, to be sent to those people. Yeah, did you?
I've read a little bit about pipelines. I haven't seen much good.
Right.
I think if we can do anything to aid the communities involved in resisting this, we should do it.
Right. Is there, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would make a motion that we sign and send the statement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, first and second. Any other discussion? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. Moving along. The next item on the agenda is to discuss the minimum required local contribution for education, which, if I can preface, this is, I believe, Selectwoman Farrell's item, but we just received a letter in the mail today, so I'll read it for the public record. This is a letter that's addressed to the Select Board from Ruth Miller. So it says, "Dear Select Board, please find the enclosed sheets which detail the income versus expenditures for Narragansett Regional School District and how it affects the transportation reimbursement amounts for fiscal year 15. At the June 18, 2014 school committee meeting, it was voted by the committee to authorize the superintendent to return any additional monies to the towns over the expected expenses of the district. As you will see, the increased school choice and charter school sending costs will negatively impact any additional funds left over from the transportation reimbursement, so there are unfortunately no additional funds to return to the town." And she sent along, it's a small chart, but it says basically that their compensation return was $87,046. However, they have increases in total expenditure of $102,000 because of the number of students that have this year chose to school choice out of Narragansett was an additional, they lost $83,784 in revenue to school choice students leaving, and they lost an additional, above what was budgeted, an additional $18,374 for sending children to charter schools above what was expected. So basically what she is saying is that the transportation adjustment increase in income is $87,046, but the sending expenses for sending Narragansett's children that are school choicing and chartering out is $102,158. And if I could just, if Selectwoman Farrell won't mind, I just want to express my personal disappointment with the decision of the superintendent to not return any of the monies. I understand that the, and you know, as was included in the letter, the school committee authorized the return of the monies. I understand that the budget, because there are other increases elsewhere, you know, it has a negative impact. However, I think that it, as an act of good faith, obviously I'm not the school superintendent, so it's not my decision, but as an act of good faith, particularly after the school committee already approved it, to not even make a show of good faith by returning $15,000, $20,000, I think personally is a poor decision, both from a standpoint of the cuts that have been made to the town, and then also from a political standpoint, knowing that there are going to be expenditures and increases in the upcoming year that are going to be necessitated. So again, I completely I happen to know a school committee member. I happen to know very well what what these figures are all about and that they did. I just personally would have liked to see the school make cuts when possible before deciding not to give Templeton and Phillipston, not just Templeton and Phillipston, anything, particularly when the school committee had approved it. But that's, sorry, I'm off my soapbox now, so if you would like to go.
Well, I brought up this informational guideline on the fiscal year waiver. At this point, I think it would be advisable, not knowing the outcome of an override, knowing that we have expenses that, this budget is very, very tight, to ask the DOR to look at if we are eligible for a waiver. And I think that's one of the steps that we can do. So if you want to take this under advisement as a board, look it over. And I think one of the steps is that we can ask the DOR if we are eligible for a waiver, and then we can, if we are eligible, we can figure out if that is something we wish to pursue. I think it has an October 1st filing deadline.
Would you be amenable to taking that first step now to voting? Because I personally feel that there is, given the financial situation of the town, again, I personally don't feel that we fit into any of the categories, but I am not one making the decision, so I would see no harm or problem with asking the DOR to make that determination of if we even qualify before we decide if we want to, because then it could save a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth and arguing and town turmoil, and if we don't, if it doesn't apply anyway, then we don't have to go down that road. So I don't know if you would consider making, or anyone would consider making a motion along those lines to just ask if, to compile the information necessary to determine if we qualify for it, and then we can, once we hear back from them, we can make the determination as to whether or not this is something that we think is in the best interest of the town. And
I would make that motion.
okay, I have a first, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Yes, John?
We don't put the criteria to the
Right.
period.
Right.
We're wasting our time doing this.
Well, my response to that would be, I tend to agree with your bottom line, but just sending it to, right, and then it will know, and, you know.
That's okay, just on the public now.
So is there any other, yes? Yes, sir.
I've heard tonight proposition 2.5 overrides. I've heard we need recurring income. I've heard, has anything been put together for an economic development plan? Any committee put together so that, maybe we can draw income into the town? We keep looking to the taxpayers, and I hear from one of the selectmen say, well, the people I talk to say there's going to be no override, they won't vote for an override. Well, that's fine, and we keep going back to the same people for the same money, but what about bringing in, like I had discussed on when my opposition to Doug, let's bring in more business.
Right.
Let's try to get new business. Is a committee put together, or can we put a committee together to possibly have an economic development plan? I was just talking with Mr. Eaton as he was leaving, and he'd be willing to, he says he'd love to sink his teeth into.
Right.
If it would be something that I think maybe the possibility that we look into and bring something into this town. Let's get this town back on the roll.
Right. No, I completely agree with you, and that was something that we had kind of started, at this point a year ago, right before kind of fiscal crisis after fiscal crisis, kind of turned our attention away, but I think that is definitely something that we should look at. Given the current, obviously, staffing cuts, we'd be looking at something that would likely be a volunteer-based committee of citizens, right, which would be fine to do, to move forward, and we can definitely, we can put out a call at our next meeting, not the one on Monday, but our next regularly scheduled meeting, to go ahead and put it on there to vote on whether or not we kind of want to put out, not a casting call, put out a kind of a call to the residents, to anyone who has interest in forming a volunteer committee to be, appointed by the board to look at getting together some ideas, which could include obviously local business owners and other community members to help try to draw business into town. So, no, I think that's definitely a good idea, and something that, Holly, if you could put on the agenda, sorry.
Yeah, after the special town meeting that we just had, Representative Andrews stuck around for quite a while and talked to a few of the citizens, the residents who were there. I was one of them. And, she was very blunt. She's just like, what do you want to see in Templeton? You've got all of this development going down in Athol at the new mall. She goes, what do you want to see in Templeton? And the first thing I said was a Trader Joe's. I want a Trader Joe's in Templeton, because I think there isn't one for miles. It would fit, I think, our demographic very well. It's just making that happen. I think she would be more than willing to partner. I believe MRPC would be more than willing to partner. When I went to Greenfield, the people who ran the meeting were the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. We don't have that in Worcester County. And it's sort of like a planning, economic, it's a very well-run organization. They have a board of directors, and they meet, and, you know, yeah. And I think that's something that, you know, maybe we could kickstart it and get something like that running in this area, because we desperately need it. Once they dismantled regional governments, you know, the county governments, and now they're pushing everyone for regional, there's a gap. There's certain things that need to be done on a county basis or a regional basis. And economic planning is one of them. It's hard for a town like Templeton, with part-time boards, committees, and commissions, to get something up and running and off the ground.
I sent Trader Joe's a letter a year
Did
ago.
you?
A year ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
What'd you get?
Letter writing campaign.
Not a word.
So at this point, we have the motion is to put together the information required to send to the Mass DOR to see if we would qualify for reduction in our minimum required local contribution. Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
No.
Diane?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So, Bob, if you could, thank you very much. Next is discuss applying for CPC money to preserve the roof for Templeton Center Elementary School.
I brought this up, I know we were successful in getting CPC money to repair the roof in East Templeton to preserve the building. I know that the roof in Templeton Center is in as bad, if not worse, condition than the building in East Templeton. We've put forth in the past, I don't know how many different plans to try to repair that roof by putting it on the tax rate, by asking for a capital debt exclusion. None of the combinations, none of the prices worked. I'm asking that we try, and we approach CPC to try to get an article to see if they will support repairing that roof, just to preserve the building. If not for the kids, just to preserve the building. Okay?
No, yes.
It's nice to see the selectmen at least looking at some of the things that were recommended by the advisory board. This is being one of them. Unfortunately, that building does not meet the criteria for going CPC at the present time.
And the reason for that is?
Pardon me?
And the reason for that is?
Because there's a process in place in order to get it to that particular position that you have to go through the historical commission in order to end up having them. That was the process that was taken for the East Templeton School. I'm well aware of that because I ended up trying to take help in that direction. We went to the historical committee on a number of occasions and got them to end up indicating from their position that the building was culturally significant. Because on an architectural basis, if you look at all the buildings in town, there's nothing significant about the buildings. I mean, it's a brick building. And as far as archaeological, there's nothing there either. So they have to look at it from the perspective of the community itself and what the building has been used for over a number of years. And that's the approach that we have to sell the Historical Commission on what it had been used for since its inception and over the years. As an example, school, naturally, you've got quite a few people, of the students that have gone through that school. You've had over the years, scouts use that downstairs large facility with the stage for their activities. And you've had your Mr. and Mrs. Club here in East Templeton that used that for a number of years on the same thing. They've used that. So when we presented that information to the Historical Commission, that's what they saw as a grounds for seeing it as culturally significant to the community of East Templeton here.
And they
You would
didn't
have to
see
take and
Templeton
present that.
Center as historically, and they
They
didn't
haven't
see
made that
Templeton.
determination
Right.
yet. We'd have
Well, I
to.
think we're saying that we need to do that.
And-
Right.
Right.
Under that pretense, then it comes under their criteria for historic, okay? With using that initially to get it so that it fell into the historic category, we ended up having to go to them a number of times, the CPC folks, and talk about saving the East Templeton building, because what we originally looked at was a full, well, not full, but a number of upgrades to that building so that it would be the roof, insulation, doors, windows, and a number of things, including the other electricity, plumbing, et cetera, that needed to be upgraded for it to be used as a town building, per se. You'd probably have to end up going to them to look at that building, number one, to see if they consider it as culturally significant. Using that, you would probably end up doing the same thing that we fell back on, is saying to take and save the building. It's not that you're going to end up going to go for a historic restoration of the building.
Right,
Right.
The roof is basically to take and save the structure.
right.
In the case of East Templeton, the roof and heating were critical to save the building, because you can't continue on just with the roof and let the building deteriorate, heating with no heat, because you have fractions in the building that over time deteriorate. As you saw, the paint was coming off the wall. That's one of the things of not having a heated building over time. So that's the approach that you would have to go before getting that money for them. And I recommend that if you're going to do it, because that was one of the recommendations that the advisory board came to you last year, and with a time frame of 1 to 4 years, that you look at it from that approach rather than just try to go for CPC. You have to go, it's a step-by-step process. And the same thing.
So let's start
Right.
that.
Let's get
Yeah,
it started.
so do we have a vote, do I have a motion to begin the process of beginning the necessary steps required to be able to successfully apply for CPC money to preserve the roof at Templeton Center Elementary School?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
First and second, any other discussion from the board? If not, Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you very much for your input as well. Okay, next, last but not least, Town Hall update.
I mentioned some of the activities earlier this evening, but I also passed out the design for the handicap restroom. Already been observed that there's a little overkill there that we don't really need to make men's and women's. We could do one unisex handicap restroom, whereas that design there also has some alterations there for the women's restroom. That wouldn't seem to be necessary. It's probably going to be used very little. So, the board is agreeable. I'll ask the engineer to cut back on that and just focus on one area there. Some other things are going on. Going forward, the alarm system, has been an issue. Holly has really worked on that, has had a company come out and take a look at the doors in the front and the back, as well as the alarm system. The recommendation is that the front doors can be preserved. They need new hardware. Back doors can't be saved. They need to be replaced, as well as with new hardware. And the alarm system can be made to function effectively. Once we do that, and also the room air conditioners that we have are creating some issues for the alarm system. The hatch on the roof, Highway Superintendent and I risked our lives and went up there on 2 long ladders last week and checked it out. We have a solution that will secure the hatch, and so that when wind kicks up, we can make sure it stays on thus create any problems. There's a good seal there, and so I don't think we need to make any other alterations. Parking and grounds, certainly Doug has seen the design for that. It's still evolving, but in the fall, when the road projects are completed, the highway department will come over and undertake some improvements to the parking areas, add some green space, sidewalk. Actually, the sidewalk is going to be mostly built in connection with the handicap ramp, where we have a September 1 deadline. But also, the back part of the lot would be used in part for parking. And the playground area is going to be saved, so that the plan that we have, I think, is fairly attractive, and it'll also improve the access and convenience for the public. So that's going to move forward as well. What am I missing here? And an electrician has been through the building. Obviously, we need some more outlets, and so we don't have a plan yet from the electrician, but we know that it's been looked at, and we'll get a plan soon.
Great. Thank you very much.
I have a few comments to make also. Even the fact that we don't have enough outlets, we're not overtaxing the electrical system that we have by any means. So the fact that we do need some additional outlets doesn't mean that we don't have sufficient amount of electricity in the building. Then the second thing is, for the ramp, I mean, we've only got 5 weeks. I mean, September 1st is our deadline, so we've only got 5 full weeks. Doesn't seem like a lot of time, so we can't lose sight of, we've got to keep this project rolling. Second part with that then, Bud has the time and the fill to do, because a lot of that fill-in work has to get done as part of the ramp, even though we're not doing the parking areas. But he's got the time and all the material to do that now?
He has said that he's going to be able to do that. And also, I did mention that Holly has checked with 3 companies that can do the brickwork there for the windows. We have a bid from one. We're supposed to have a bid from a second one tomorrow. And apparently the third potential bidder is not going to bid. So we're going to have to make a quick decision, get the brickwork done there, and move ahead with the ramp project.
Okay, then the last comment that I have about that is regarding the door on the back. We need to make sure whatever doors we choose there, we'll be able to accept automatic opener, because that being the handicap entrance, we have to have those doors automatically open. I don't think it's as important to have an aesthetically like door on the back as it is in the front. So if we preserve the doors on the front, if we have to put a modern metal kind of door on the back with glass, so be it. But I don't think it's as critical on the back.
What I did notice when I was up on the roof is that cupola is in poor condition, and it needs attention. Painting. Julie's been doing some
No,
painting, maybe.
I'm not
when
getting
she's
up on the
finished.
No.
Yes, Mr. Smart.
Did you notice the windows upstairs too? I think they pretty much done.
Windows, also insulation is needed as well.
There are no windows upstairs.
Yeah, Parker Glass is gonna actually work on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we need to get glass in those, even though they're not in great shape, we need to get glass in them so we don't get water and stuff in the upstairs.
Birds.
Yes.
Another follow-up on the heating system, is the deadline still the end of the month, and have they even started?
No, it's August 15th. They did order the heater, and they should be starting next week, I believe.
We had a discussion with them about the specifications for the heating system. They wanted to substitute, and the decision was made that no, we're not going to substitute. Actually, that's, the bid document said no substitutions. So
That seems to be taking.
once that's resolved,
That's too bad.
they said we'll go forward.
This poor company, even when they could get a bond.
Yes.
Was my understanding correct that we're having problems with our computers within the building?
Today,
My follow-up question is, if that's the case, do we have surge protectors on all our computers in the community for all, I mean, that's a,
I don't know that we have them for all. I think, I know the ones that I've seen have surge protection. Doug was speculating that the problem we had today may have had something to do with the changes in the firewall that were done recently. For example, I sent 8 emails this morning and discovered at noontime that none have gone out. So some of you may receive emails tomorrow that are a little bit dated, but I was receiving email incoming. So.
Our firewall is so good, it won't even let our emails.
We can't
even
send
get out.
it.
It's that good. Is there anything else on that topic? I just want to say, I've said this like 10 times, but every time I go in there, I'm always like, it's just is amazing how much space there is in there. Because like Holly's in her little cubicle all by herself. I'm like, oh my goodness, we could just put all the offices right in here. We can move in Richington's offices if we have to. No, but there's plenty of space in there, so it's good to see that moving in other departments should not be a concern. Maybe we might be able to even park a highway truck inside if we have to. I don't know. There's that much. But is there anything else on that topic? If not, I'll move on to selectmen's comments, which is our last thing. Julie, did you have anything that you would like to say or add to the agenda, or?
Just that we're going to be having a work bee for the senior center 2 Saturdays, August 2nd and August 9th. And depending on how the painting goes, we may have one this weekend for East Templeton. And there is a fundraiser for Gilman Waite that has been circulating through town.
Okay.
I think you can get tickets at the Light Company and at Country Mischief, and I'm not sure if there was another place listed.
Thank you. Oh, and that reminds me, Holly, could you please add the rec back on, or onto next, not the agenda for Monday, but for our next regularly scheduled meeting to kind of do a progress? I know that we had appointed a commission, we had appointed them at the last meeting, appointed. So just to kind of see where they are with that, just so we can keep abreast as to what we need to do regarding contracts for dollar and whatnot, if that needs to be done.
There's a few more people I'll probably add on to the appointment.
Sure, and if you could shoot an email to them as well, that would be great. Thank you very much. Doug, did you have?
The only thing I really had is that the Friends of the Elders for the Senior Center is doing a fundraiser. The exact date escapes me. It's like the 4th, or it's the Friday before the craft fair, I believe, isn't that right?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact date, but it's a night. It's going to be here at Camelot, and it should be a very fun and interesting night. They're having an appraiser that was one of the guys on the Antiques Roadshow who did like 7 seasons or something. So he'll be here doing reviews of or appraisals of some antique items that people bring. Be a silent auction, and a lot of great stuff. So it should be a fun night.
And he's also a comedian.
Yeah. So you'll start seeing some posters and things going up around town. But should try to come if you can.
John, do you have anything you'd like to?
Well, I just would like to say to Mrs. Farrell that we're disappointed that you don't want to go up and paint the cupola.
Not happening.
And earlier tonight, we spoke about the budget format. I think it's important, before we get locked in too much, that we talk with our DOR field rep, because I know that working in other towns, that they helped out with that.
Thank you very much.
Well, just a
sorry, go ahead.
follow-up comment on the cupola. For someone who hasn't been in town that long, it is really amazing and very impressive, the level of volunteerism that has surrounded this move to the new town hall. I mean, people look out here, people not only who are just residents, who just walk in and volunteer and contribute and do a whole variety of things, contribute their time, even money, and the town employees as well have pitched in, they've dealt with the crisis and so forth. And while, the financial picture may still be a bit grim, I think the town has every reason to be very proud that its residents, or at least a substantial portion of the residents, are very much engaged and involved civically and are making contributions in a variety of ways to the welfare of the community. It's a very impressive thing from someone from more or less the outside, and where you don't see that a lot in other parts of the Commonwealth.
Diane, did you have anything?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I had mentioned earlier that I did a tour of the highway barn, which was extremely enlightening, of the dinosaur equipment that we have, and a dinosaur would be a good name. I really, these are just some thoughts in my head, and I don't really know where to go. I would like the public to see more, and I know that all that equipment gets parked out there sometimes, but to really take a good look at it, it's ancient, and it's crazy what they drive around with. And for safety's sake, honestly, I don't know how they do it. But the other thing was we just appointed some surplus, and I know that they're all busy, but there were some other things that were appointed some surplus too, and I had just asked Bud, like, what was gonna happen with that. And that there was a, Dave, what is that piece of equipment at the very end of the barn? That's not an excavator, is it?
The old front end loader?
Yeah, that's in, like, kind of poor shape, but I think it could be used for some parts, and they just spent a lot of money, like, rebuilding something, and I think I had written to you about that, and I really, maybe it takes Bud to come and really talk about, if we could do what we need to with the surplus and not wait on that. I know that they like to use parts over and over, which is amazing. I can't believe what you can build out of nothing. To just really, I want to look more into that, because maybe some of that money, they do need some other equipment, and where we don't have the money, could we use that towards something else? So that's just one thought. I was going to call Holly earlier, and then the power went out. I had said a while back that I would work on the personnel policy and procedure, and I have begun that now. I don't have a Word document, so I'm just kind of going through the PDF, so that's one thing. And then I wanted to ask you, we must have a bunch of committees and stuff, and I wanted to look at that before, what's active, what's not. Is there a way I can get a list of that? But to add to that, I've thought about a long time, a welcoming committee, just to really get together, and for new people who move to town. I don't know if we ever had anything like that before, but to know where to find the town offices, or to go to the businesses and to say, put in a please vote, registration to vote, and just some other informational things. So I don't know if that's something that we could look at doing again, because I just think, to get more involvement and whatever. So those are my thoughts for today.
And not only is that equipment from this fact that it's old and breaks down a lot, but just from, and safety, but the money, $100,000
Yeah, we're
a
spending a
year,
lot of
every
money
year,
fixing
just to
it.
fix the broken equipment.
We could
Yeah.
have had a new piece of equipment 2 times over.
Some of the amount we've spent on repairs.
It's awful. Honestly, it's awful.
Yes.
If I could add to that, I must say, how do I say this gently?
That's not our way in town anyway.
Our newer equipment, our newest truck requires just as much money
Oh,
as my old 84.
Oh.
More money,
To fix?
exactly. The
Okay.
new equipment you're gonna buy now is good for about 3 years, you gotta trade it. 4 years, 5 years, you're dumping money into it, and it's at the tune of a whole lot.
Well, I know, yeah, I know many times.
We can fix up an
Yeah.
older truck and keep
Yeah.
an older truck running, and we've proved that.
But it's still a lot
We
of
don't wanna
money.
run off
But I
on a
think
bunch of new
it's,
stuff.
yeah. I think it's just more, I know that it's come to the town before to buy some equipment, and it's always shot down, but there's what, at least a minimum of 2 trucks right now sitting in the yard that just can't even, and you need it. So, that's all.
Yeah, that'll be a big topic for capital planning this year. Because the plan, the way we laid it out, and we continue to update it, we can actually project, what it is and how long it will take us to get stabilized.
And I do not have anything to contribute today. But if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second?
Second. Great. Any discussion? Julie?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
John? Diane?
Yeah.
I vote yes.
It's old equipment.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Yep, thanks.
Want me to get that?
They will.